Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Newcastle United corner. I'm carving this little corner for myself, and we're going to talk about Newcastle United, and we're going to talk about everything related to Newcastle United. This is the first episode, and I'm going to use this opportunity to talk about how Newcastle did last season. For the second time in history, a team that finishes seventh doesn't make it into Europe. And this is because Manchester United obviously won the FA Cup. That was disappointing. After falling to the 11th position, a magnificent comeback against West Ham, and all the games towards the end of the season, we thought that we could culminate in a scenario where we could all go to Europe, Newcastle United specifically. Ultimately, the final of the FA Cup did not go our way, and Manchester United picked us by getting into Europe, and also picked Chelsea, who got relegated to the Europa Conference League. In a sense, not making it to Europe made the season a little bit more disappointing, especially experiencing the highs of finishing seventh and the hopes of Manchester City doing what Manchester City does. Who would have thought that Manchester City would have a bad day in the FA Cup final? That brings up the question, where did I think that Newcastle would be at the beginning of the season? And looking back, I fell into the trap. I really thought that Newcastle United would be in the top four. So in a sense, finishing seventh is a far cry from my expectation at the very beginning of the season. So in a sense, it's a bit of a disappointment. But given the big picture, Newcastle United was fighting relegation 2-3 seasons ago before Eddie Howe joined. And now we are finishing seventh. And due to a freak incident, Manchester United pipped us. We do not get to play in Europe despite our successes in the league. So there's a bit of a discrepancy in my expectations for the season and where we ended. And I think it's a good time to talk about it. What caused Newcastle to fall short of their season expectations? The major reasons, of course. Number one reason is the injury situation. For most of the season, Newcastle United was fighting a significant battle with injuries to significant players. An example of such an injury was Dan Burn breaking his back. Another one was Callum Wilson injuring his chest. Harvey Barnes breaking his toe. And, all of our major players, Lascelles was out. Sven Botman had a knee injury and decided against going for surgery. That impacted the way he played. And it eventually led to him getting the surgery at the very end of the season. Or should I say at the beginning of January. And he's going to be out through the beginning of next season. And the earliest we can expect him is sometime in December. So injuries played a role. And how it impacted our game is that because we had very few personnel that we could put in to change games, whatever tactic we started with was kind of like the way we played throughout. And we had situations where teams began to read us and we couldn't change the game afterwards. We had a problem with the midfield. It was imbalanced as a result of the injuries, as a result of the suspension of Tonali. Our Kieran Trippier was also out for a significant number of the games. So I'm not going to make excuses. I'm kind of happy with where we finished in a sense. It's disappointing we didn't make Europe. But overall, given the big picture, I think we are in a good position. I think that we have to solve the injury problem and remove some of the players who are being paid and do not actually get to play. Some of that has already happened. Some of the, Dummett has left, and some of our old heroes have gone. So they're clearing the deck in a sense so that they can bring in some new players next season. That's the discrepancy and exactly what made the difference between where we were and where we should be, according to me. So, what are the highlights of the season? We're going to talk about some of the highlights. Beating Sheffield 8-0 was quite the highlight. And I think that it masked a number of the problems we were facing at that particular time, and gave the Newcastle United fans a lot of comfort, because at the very beginning we had already started to see issues with our away games. We were inconsistent like the previous season, unlike the previous season where we were beating teams away. In this season, we failed to do a good job playing away. Like I said, we've already addressed the reasons why, and I don't think I need to readdress it. Another highlight of the season was the West Ham game, where we were down 3-1 in the 77th minute and somehow ended up winning the game 4-3. That was a really, really good game. Some of the players that kind of helped us throughout the season: Isak, with his significant goal haul this season, making him the first player since Alan Shearer to score more than 20 goals in the season. He's off to a great start at Newcastle United, and we're looking forward to seeing where he goes. The most consistent player, however, was Anthony Gordon, who was there throughout the very season. We missed the last 2 games due to injuries, and it kind of epitomizes the whole season. And obviously Bruno, who played in every single game bar one due to suspension, and he was the highlight of the season, and he came to form, especially towards the very end of the season after they balanced out how the midfield was going to play. I think that Newcastle, as we said, got dumped out of the Champions League unceremoniously, finishing 4th. But I would say like the whole atmosphere around the Champions League was significantly great for the Newcastle fans. Watching the Newcastle thump Paris Saint-Germain 4-1 in the Champions League is one of those memorable games that Newcastle fans can always look back on. Similar to how we beat Barcelona at St. James Park. Not much else was really great about it. I did see, Dortmund was the game that we thought we had the best chance at winning. But having watched them play, it's no surprise to me they made it to the Champions League finals, and I think I talked to Ayo about that. The Carling Cup and the FA Cup were quite interesting because we got to play Sunderland and that was the first time in a long time we played Sunderland, and the discrepancy between the two teams were quite high, so much so that Newcastle fans got a laugh from watching Sunderland create a black and white bar for Newcastle in Sunderland. Kieran Trippier, towards the December period, started to show a significant consistency in how he played. He was the reason, him alone was the reason why we lost to Chelsea in the FA Cup quarterfinals. When he was benched and later injured, we started to see some improvement in how Newcastle played. For somebody who was so crucial to how we had played for the last 2 years, it was interesting to see the regression that occurred with Kieran Trippier. The fact that we did not have a lot of good cup draws was also a bit of a lowlight, and every single time we got on a run, we would get drawn with PSG, AC Milan and Dortmund, or Manchester City, who kicked us out of the FA Cup and then lost to Manchester United in the finals. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were bad compared to where we were before Eddie Howe came in. We would be dumped in the 4th round. At least we were making it into the quarterfinals in all those competitions, which is a big change. So, generally speaking, I think I'm going to use this as an opportunity to conclude. I thought that Newcastle had an okay season. Okay season is generally how. It could have been good if we had made it to Europe, but we didn't. So it got downgraded from good to okay. Did I see improvements? In a way, yes. This is Eddie Howe's most difficult season he's had since becoming the manager of Newcastle. And if we had actually made it into Europe, I would have thought this was a better season than the first season where we qualified for Champions League, which was his second season overall. I'm gonna end with the new Adidas ad. I already ordered my jersey. It's coming in a few weeks. I'm looking forward to trying out that one. The Adidas collaboration with Newcastle is a significant gain for Newcastle, and it improves our revenue from jerseys from 5 million to almost 42 million.
A citizenship.
Passing folks along the road.
A way of life.
Just as they were stunning.
It's a uniform.
And all the lads and lasses there, all the smiling faces.
A family.
Gunning along the Scotswood Road to see the bladed.
It's a history lesson.
Drops for ship. I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
It's a night in. A night out. It's every day. Wherever you go.
To see the bladed races.
It's black and white.